They said my dad was dying. What they didn't say was that I was walking into a trap designed like a Broadway con job with better actors and worse intentions. It started with a barrage of calls while I was in Phoenix wrapping up a critical pitch for a 7-figure software deal. First it was my mom, then my older brother Kyle, then Aunt Linda. I ignored them at first. I was busy. But when Mom left a voicemail sobbing so loud I couldn't even make out her words, I froze. Then Kyle texted, "It's Dad. Heart attack. Come home now." I booked the next red-eye back to Denver without packing a bag. My hands shook the whole way to the airport. My father and I weren't close. He always hated that I didn't join the family lumber business, but he was still my dad. And the thought of him dying while I sat in a boardroom sipping overpriced coffee made me nauseous. I left behind everything. My team, my deal, my sanity. The plane landed at 5:52 a.m. No ambulance waiting. No panicked family at the hospital. Just my cousin Trent leaned up against his rusted-out truck with 2 coffees in hand, grinning like this was just another Tuesday. "Dad?" I asked before I even got my seatbelt off. "Oh, he's resting," Trent said, eyes shifting. "Doc said it wasn't a real heart attack. Just a scare. You know how he gets." My stomach twisted. Something was off. I felt it deep, in that gut-level way you can't reason out but can't shake either. Trent made small talk the whole drive. Asked about my condo in Miami. Asked if my company was still doing those government contracts. I barely heard him. I kept replaying Mom's voicemail in my head. The sobbing, the urgency, the panic. We pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. Everything looked the same, down to the cracked birdbath and faded swing set. But the minute I stepped inside, the air changed. No machines, no oxygen tanks, no weak, recovering father. Instead, the whole damn family was sitting at the dining table. Suits, smiles, and silence. Dad, alive and upright, glanced up from his coffee and smirked. "There he is. Took you long enough?" I didn't even sit down. The lawyer, some guy I didn't recognize, motioned to the seat next to him. A thick folder sat in front of it, papers sticking out at every angle. Legal jargon practically radiating off the pages. "Glad you're here," my mom said with sudden composure, dabbing dry eyes with a tissue. "We just need your signature on a few things. It's just paperwork, you know, formalities." Kyle chimed in. "We're restructuring the company. Dad's health was a wake-up call. We need to protect the legacy. You're the only one with solid liquidity." The room started spinning. Not from shock. No, that would have been a relief. This was fury. Fury wrapped in disbelief and betrayal. 10 years. 10 years of grinding 16-hour days, building a tech startup from nothing, while they laughed at me behind my back for not being a real man like the rest of them. And now here they were, all smiles and crocodile tears, ready to borrow my life's work. The paperwork was a full transfer of my assets, my 48% stake in the company, my condo, my investments, even the car I bought in cash. All in the name of saving the family. Except it wasn't saving. It was stealing. Legal theft, gift wrapped in guilt. I looked around. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Kyle kept tapping his pen, bouncing his knee. Dad sipped his coffee like he didn't just fake a heart attack to lure me here. And then I noticed something. Something sickening. They weren't desperate. They were prepared. Everyone had their lines. The lawyer nodded at the right beats. Mom teared up on cue. Even Aunt Linda offered cookies like this was a bake sale and not an ambush. I picked up the pen. I smiled. Then I scribbled. Not my signature. Not even close. They didn't notice. Not right away. Kyle grinned like he'd won a damn lottery. "That wasn't so hard, right?" I pushed the papers back across the table. "By the way," I said, standing up, "you might want to verify those signatures before you try to file them." The lawyer's face froze. Dad's jaw clenched. Mom dropped. The tissue. Kyle's eyes went wide, and for once, the room was silent. Then I added, voice calm but shaking from adrenaline, "I flew across the country because I thought my father was dying. You used that to scam me. Don't ever contact me again. Unless someone's actually dead. And next time, hire better actors." I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I just left. And as I stepped outside into the cold Denver morning, one thought lit my brain like a match to gasoline. If they're this desperate, they're hiding something way worse. I wasn't walking away this time. I was going to dig until I found it. At the bank, I didn't just check my balances. I froze every joint account my name had ever touched, added biometric-only access to my main funds, and moved my investment portfolios to a new private firm I'd vetted 6 months prior. Paranoia? Maybe. But that stunt they pulled shattered whatever lingering trust I had left. I couldn't afford to be careless, not when I'd just seen how far my family would go to gut me like a fish. The manager was sympathetic. "You'd be surprised how often this happens," she said, her eyes tight with pity. "Especially with families. Families." That word used to mean something to me. Warmth, loyalty, barbecues and snowball fights and long drives in Dad's truck with Springsteen on the radio. Now it felt like a threat. A weapon they'd used against me. When I got to my hotel, finally, I crashed hard. I must have slept 12 hours straight, fully clothed, one shoe still on. When I woke up, there were 12 missed calls and 9 texts, all variations of "we didn't mean it like that" and "please come talk." The prize winner was from my mom. "You'll regret this when your father's really gone." Subtle. I turned off my phone. The next morning I walked into the old diner near Main Street. Greasy eggs, coffee like tar, but it was the only place, in tall pines, where I knew no one would bother me, or so I thought. I was halfway through my second cup when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Didn't think you'd show your face around here again." I turned slowly. Of course. It was Jake Mullen, my ex-best friend, former prom king, and, last I heard, the guy who ended up running my dad's lumber yard after I left for Stanford. He looked the same, just with more belly and less hair. I didn't say anything, just nodded. He slid into the booth across from me uninvited. "So, heard you made it big. Tech something, right?" I shrugged. "Something like that." He leaned forward. "Funny. Everyone thought you were too smart for this town." "Guess we were right." I smiled, cold. "You want something?" Jake's eyes twitched. "Yeah, the truth. I know what happened. They told me everything. About the money, the deal. Your meltdown," I laughed. Actually laughed. "Meltdown? That what they're calling it?" He shrugged. "People talk. They say you came back like a hotshot, refused to help, then stormed off like a spoiled kid." "Of course they do," I said. "You all need a villain to make yourselves feel better." Jake leaned back, crossing his arms. "Look, man, maybe you should have helped. Your dad built this town. That business kept food on a lot of tables. Now it's going under, and you could have stopped it." There it was. The guilt pitch. Delivered with a side of fried eggs and self-righteousness, I leaned in too. "You know what else he built, Jake? A childhood full of screaming. A house where failure got you punched and success got you resented. That lumber yard was never mine to save. It was my prison." Jake flinched. "I didn't know." "No," I said, standing up. "You didn't, because you never asked, just like the rest of them." I left cash on the table and walked out. I didn't owe them a thing. Still, I knew this wasn't over. My family didn't give up easily. They were sharks in denim jackets and Sunday smiles, and I just bled in the water. That night, someone tried to break into my hotel room. No subtlety, just brute force at 3:12 a.m., a card swipe, a slam. Then, another. I was out of bed in a second, knife from the kitchenette in hand, back pressed against the wall like some thriller movie reject, the lock held. Barely. Then silence. I waited a full hour before calling the front desk. The night manager's voice was shaky. "You're not the first to complain about disturbances tonight. Should I call the police?" I almost said no. But then I remembered the look in Carter Langston's eyes, the family lawyer, when I refused to sign. That wasn't disappointment. That was panic. "Yeah," I said. "Call them, and I want the camera footage." Something told me I was going to need it. The officer who arrived looked about 22 and freshly pressed, like he'd just walked out of a recruitment poster. He took my statement, nodded like he cared, and then asked if I might have just imagined the incident, since there were no visible signs of forced entry. "No," I said calmly. "I didn't imagine someone trying to shoulder their way through my door." He chewed his lip and flipped his notebook shut. "We'll look into it." Right. And I'm sure they'd get right on that after their donut break, but I wasn't, counting on the local PD to save me. I'd already called someone who actually knew what they were doing. Meet Kira Mendoza, former Army CID, current private security consultant, and the best $1,500 retainer I've ever spent. She'd helped me years ago when a competitor tried to sabotage one of my startups. If there was one person I trusted to sniff out threats and hit back twice as hard, it was her. By the time she landed in Tall Pines the next day, she'd already reviewed the hotel security logs and hacked into the building's cloud-secured surveillance feed. She didn't even ask permission, just handed me a tablet over breakfast at a different, much more expensive hotel. "Recognize him?" she asked, tapping play. The grainy footage showed a man in a hoodie lingering by my door. He never looked up, but I didn't need to see his face. The walk, the stance, the hunched shoulders, it was my brother. "Tyler," I said flatly. "Bingo," Kira said. "He tried a master key card. Failed. Then something spooked him. Took off. My stomach turned. Tyler, my youngest brother. The golden boy. The one who'd cried on my shoulder the night our dog died and told me I was his hero when I left for college. What the hell was he doing trying to break into my room?" "He's not the type," I said, more to myself than her. Kira raised a brow. "Everyone's the type, given the right motivation." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was spinning. Why him? Why now? Later that afternoon I got my answer. I went for a walk down the tree-lined streets of Tall Pines trying to clear my head. Ended up at the edge of the old train tracks where we used to play as kids. There, standing like he was waiting for me, was Carter Langston, the lawyer. He looked like a lizard in a designer suit, leaning on a cane he absolutely didn't need. He smiled when he saw me. Not kindly. "I thought you might show up here," he said. "Your brother used to bring you here after your father." He trailed off, pretending to search for a tactful word. "Found none." "What do you want?" I asked. "Same as before," he said smoothly. "For you to reconsider your position. The trust, the land, your father's legacy. It all hangs in limbo." "Correction," I snapped. "It hangs in the claws of a vulture who tried to coerce me with lies and manipulation," Carter smirked. "Semantics." I stepped closer. "Did you send Tyler? Was that your brilliant legal strategy? Intimidation?" He didn't even flinch. "I had no part in that. But if your brother acted rashly, well, emotions are high. Families get messy." I clenched my jaw. "Let me be crystal clear. You come near me again, or send anyone else, and you'll be dealing with more than a frozen trust. You'll be dealing with federal charges, fraud, attempted coercion, maybe even conspiracy." Carter's face darkened. "Careful, son. You're not as untouchable as you think." "No," I said, turning away. "I'm just not stupid." I walked off. Didn't look back. By the time I returned to the hotel, Kira had more dirt. "Your family's broke," she said bluntly, sitting cross-legged on the bed with her laptop open. "Like mega broke. I pulled the books from the lumber business. Massive losses. Loans defaulting. Foreclosure notices on 3 properties. Let me guess," I muttered. "They plan to cash out the trust to keep it all afloat." She nodded. "Exactly. But here's the twist. They can't access the trust without your signature. Your father set it up that way. Any transfer of the land requires unanimous consent from all direct heirs." I sat down hard. "So they need me." "Yup. But now, you've gone nuclear, froze accounts, lawyered up. They're desperate." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "So what's their next move?" Kira shrugged. "Depends how far they're willing to go." As if on cue, my burner phone rang. Only one person had that number. "My mother," I answered. "Yeah?" Her voice was calm, too calm. "Sweetheart, I just want to talk. Can we meet?" I paused. "Where?" "The old lake house. Just us." "Please." "The lake house. Our childhood getaway. Full of good memories and bad ones." Kira raised an eyebrow. I nodded once. "I'll be there," I told Mom. Then hung up. Kira stood. "You sure?" "No," I said. "But it's time I faced the rest of the truth. And if they were planning another ambush, this time I wouldn't be walking in blind." The lake house hadn't changed much. The paint was still peeling. The porch swing still groaned like a haunted violin when the wind hit it just right. It was the only place where my dad let us be kids, where the world didn't revolve around profit margins and bloodlines. Now, it looked like the perfect place for an ambush. Kira parked a mile down the road in a rented Jeep, staying close but out of sight. "Keep your phone on," she said, passing me an earbud. "One blink too long, one raised voice, I'm in, there." "Thanks, Mom," I joked, though my voice cracked more than I'd like. I walked the gravel path alone, kicking up dust. hearing the crunch of betrayal under every step. The front door was open, wide, like an invitation or a trap. My mother sat inside, curled in the corner of the old floral love seat like she belonged in a painting of genteel southern decay. She held a mug that probably once held tea, but now just trembled in her hands. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Sit." I stayed standing. "Why now?" She looked older than I remembered, more worn out than I ever let myself notice. "Because you've made everything impossible." I folded my arms. "No, I made everything honest." She winced. "We were going to tell you. We just needed time. You had 10 years. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire long extinguished. She looked away. "Do you know what they're doing?" I asked. "Tyler tried to break into my room. Carter threatened me on public property. And Dad's legacy? They're selling it off like a garage sale." She looked down. "It's not that simple." "Then make it simple." She placed the mug on the table, hands now steady. "The business was dying, slowly. Your father's death sped it up. Tyler tried to expand too quickly, and Bethany," she paused, "got in bed with Carter financially before she understood what kind of snake he was." "Sounds like a you problem," I said. "Not a me one." She finally stood. "Don't do this, Matthew. Don't make this war." I stepped back. "You already did." She moved forward and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was stronger than I expected. "Your father built that land for you all. Not just you. All of you. And he set up a trust to make sure it was protected." She softened. "He trusted you to be the one who wouldn't let it burn." I pulled my hand away. "He also trusted me to recognize manipulation when I see it." She didn't argue, just turned and walked to the window, staring out at the lake. That's when I heard the crunch of tires. I moved to the door just as Tyler's truck rolled up, dust cloud behind him. His face behind the wheel was tight, jaw clenched. Not rage, shame. Kira's voice came through my ear. "That's your brother, alone, no visible weapons. Proceeding to porch. I'm on standby." I didn't respond. Tyler stepped out and walked up, slow like he expected to get punched. I met him halfway. He didn't look me in the eye. "Can we talk?" "Sure. You want to start with the attempted break-in?" He exhaled. "I wasn't going to hurt you." "Could have fooled me." "I panicked," he said. "Bethany said if I couldn't talk you into signing, Carter would come after everything we had. She said it was our only shot." I shook my head. "And you believed her?" "She's our sister," he said quietly. "I believed all of you." I stared at him. This wasn't the brother I remembered. This was a man worn down, cornered. "You could have just called me." He laughed bitterly. "Would you have answered?" "Fair point." He looked up. "We made mistakes. Huge ones. But Carter's worse. He's been stealing from us for years. Used Bethany to do it. We didn't know until it was too late. The trust? It's the last asset standing. If he can't get it, he'll bury us. So you thought it was better to trick me than tell me the truth?" "We didn't think you'd care." That one stung. I glanced toward the lake. "What's the real plan here, Ty? What did Mom ask you to do?" He swallowed hard. "She told me to convince you. That's it. And if I say no?" He looked away. Kira's voice buzzed again. Another car approaching, silver BMW, Carter's. Perfect timing. I stepped off the porch and squared my shoulders. Tyler followed. Carter emerged like he owned the land. Same smug look, same sleazy confidence. "Well, well," he said. "A little family reunion. How quaint." "No lawyers," I said. "No deals. You're trespassing." Carter smiled. "I don't think so. Bethany added me to the deed as a temporary custodian. I'm well within my rights." I turned to Tyler. "Is that true?" He didn't answer. Carter stepped closer. "Let's not make this messy, Matthew. You sign the release. I walk away. Everyone gets something." "Except Dad," I said. "He gets his legacy gutted." "He's dead," Carter said coldly. "The living need to survive." I nodded once. "Okay," he smirked. "Okay what?" "Okay, I'll sign. But I want to do it in town, public setting. All the heirs present." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Why the sudden change of heart?" I smiled. "Because I've decided it's time everyone sees exactly what kind of man you are." Behind my back, I clicked the tiny remote Kira had handed me earlier. And inside Carter's car, a hidden dashcam began uploading its audio, including his exact words just now. "He's dead. The living need to survive." Let's see how that plays in court. By the time we returned to town, the trap was already set. Kira had been busy. While I played the dutiful son at the lake house, she forwarded Carter's incriminating audio clip to 3 different local journalists, the probate court office, and, just for fun, an anonymous Reddit thread titled, "My cousin is trying to steal my dead father's land, AMA." The post had already started going viral. People love a good family scandal, especially when it includes greed, betrayal, and backwoods real estate drama. I half expected Carter to bolt after he saw the smirk I wore on the drive back, but his ego wouldn't allow it. He needed to win in public. Narcissists are funny like that. The meeting was scheduled in a neutral location, a small-town law office with enough wood paneling to make Abe Lincoln feel at home. Kira sat in the parking lot, just in case things went sideways. I wore a hidden mic and a calm expression. Tyler arrived first, followed by Bethany, who wouldn't even make eye contact. Carter, naturally, showed up last. He walked in like a man expecting applause. Briefcase, sunglasses, smile made of plastic. "Let's make this quick, shall we?" he said. We all sat in the conference room. A paralegal distributed copies of the revised agreement Carter had drafted. It was a legal landmine. If I signed it, I'd be forfeiting all my rights to the trust, the property, and any future claims. Even worse, I'd be acknowledging Carter as a legitimate executor of Dad's estate. I let the silence stretch before I spoke. "I have one change," I said, sliding my own copy forward. "Just a small addition at the bottom." Carter raised an eyebrow, took the paper, and began to read. His face paled, because my small addition wasn't a line. It was a notarized addendum stating I was revoking power of attorney from the family trustee and filing for a full audit of the estate under the Uniform Trust Code. Every financial decision made by the trust, past and present, would be under scrutiny, including Carter's involvement. Oh, and the audit was already filed that morning. "Are you insane?" Carter hissed. "You can't do this." "I already did." Bethany's eyes went wide. "Matt, this could destroy everything." "Everything," I repeated. "You mean like how you helped Carter sell off Dad's patents for pennies and funneled the money into his shell companies? Or how Tyler forged a loan using Dad's drilling rig as collateral?" Tyler slumped in his chair. Carter stood. "This is defamation." "Nope. It's justice," I said calmly. "And by the way, you're being recorded, so maybe choose your next threats carefully." The paralegal looked like she wanted to melt into the walls. Carter's calm cracked. "You think you've won? You think anyone cares what your daddy wanted? This is business, Matthew. You're just a sentimental fool playing at war." I leaned forward. "Maybe, but the war's over, and you just lost." Because at that moment the door opened, and in walked the town's probate attorney, escorted by 2 deputies. "Carter Bledsoe?" the attorney asked. "We need you to come with us. There's a warrant for your arrest, fraudulent conveyance of trust assets, perjury, and embezzlement." Carter's eyes bulged. "This is a mistake. These people are lying." The deputy was already cuffing him. "Tell it to the judge," Bethany gasped. "You set him up." I turned to her. "No, he set himself up. I just gave him the spotlight." They hauled Carter out, still sputtering about misunderstandings and loyalty. The room stayed silent for a long beat. Then Tyler stood and faced me. "I didn't know it was this bad," he said. I nodded once. "You didn't want to know." He sighed. "So what now?" "Now the trust is locked," I said. "No more deals, no more backdoor sales. Everything goes to court, clean slate, the way Dad intended." Bethany looked defeated. "We'll lose everything. Then maybe you shouldn't have bet it all on a con man." I walked out before she could reply. Tyler followed me to the parking lot. "Why'd you really come back?" he asked. I stared at the horizon for a moment. "Because someone had to." He nodded, then did something unexpected. He hugged me. It wasn't long or dramatic. Just 2 brothers trying to rebuild something after the fire. Later that evening, Kira and I watched the sunset from my dad's old dock. The lake was quiet. Orange glow dancing across the water like it remembered every fight, every promise. "You did it," Kira said. "You brought the whole house of cards down." I exhaled. "Yeah, but now I have to figure out what to do with the ashes." She smiled. "Build something better." I nodded. "For Dad." And as the night settled in, for the first time in years, I felt like I was home. 3 weeks later, I stood in the courtroom, watching Carter sweat through his overpriced linen suit as the judge read out the findings of the preliminary audit: multiple unauthorized transfers of trust assets, deliberate misrepresentation of fiduciary responsibilities, attempts to conceal financial records. Every word was a nail in Carter's professional coffin. He didn't look so smug now. His jaw twitched, his eyes darting toward the press gallery where two reporters were scribbling like mad. His lawyer sat beside him, whispering something that sounded like, "Plea deal or prison." I glanced across the room at Bethany and Tyler. Tyler looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Bethany, for once, was silent. Her signature superiority curdled into shame. Carter stood up and tried one last Hail Mary. "Your Honor, this is a witch hunt. My cousin. He set me up. He doctored those recordings. He's trying to destroy our family legacy." The judge didn't even blink. "Mr. Bledsoe, the recordings were verified by 3 independent forensic labs. You were offered a chance to respond. You declined. The court has no patience for crocodile tears." Boom. Carter's bail was revoked on the spot. A pair of deputies led him away in cuffs, his face frozen in disbelief. The man who once strutted through oil conferences and family dinners like he was king of the world was now just another con artist headed for a cell with peeling paint and cold concrete floors. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about restoration. When the hearing ended, Tyler approached me slowly, like someone walking through a minefield. "I was wrong," he said simply. "Yeah," I replied. "You were," he nodded. "I'm stepping down from the trust. I shouldn't have ever touched it." Bethany joined him. "We lost ourselves trying to hold on to something that never belonged to us." I didn't disagree. "Dad always said," I reminded them, "family isn't just blood, it's behavior." They both looked like they'd swallowed gravel. "Are you going to cut us out entirely?" Bethany asked, eyes searching mine. "Not my call," I said. "Dad's trust was clear. You'll get your share, just not the control." Kira and I left the courthouse hand in hand. We didn't speak until we were back at the lake house. It was quiet again. Peaceful. "I almost forgot what silence sounds like," I said, sitting on the dock where Dad and I used to fish. Kira handed me a cold beer. "Silence sounds a lot like victory," I laughed. "I should embroider that on a pillow." The next morning I drove out to Dad's old workshop. It had been left untouched, dusty but intact. His old blueprint table still held sketches for oil rig upgrades, doodles of fishing lures, even an unfinished poem scrawled on the back of a napkin. Classic Dad. That's when the idea hit me like lightning. This land, this house, was more than inheritance. It was legacy. And legacies weren't meant to be hoarded. They were meant to be shared. 2 months later, the permits were approved. 4 months after that, the first beams went up. I turned Dad's land into something new, something better. The Holbrook Foundation. A nonprofit training center for underprivileged kids who wanted to learn trades: welding, mechanical engineering, oil rig safety, and real-world business skills. We built cabins for overnight programs. Kira ran the logistics. Tyler, to his credit, offered to fund scholarships with what little he had left after restitution. Bethany donated the rights to Dad's last design patent. I made sure none of them got a seat on the board. Carter's trial became a national story. The media dubbed it the oil field air hustle. Netflix even called about a docuseries. I passed, but I did write an article for a business journal titled, "Blood Doesn't Make You Family, Loyalty Does." It went viral. 1 year later, on the anniversary of Dad's death, we held a dedication ceremony by the lake. 100 people came, former rig workers, kids who were now certified apprentices, even the town mayor. I stood at the podium, staring out at the lake my father loved. "My father didn't build an empire," I began. "He built people. He gave others the tools to rise. Tools like integrity, discipline, and grit. Somewhere along the line, some of us forgot that. But we're here to remember." The crowd clapped. Kira beamed. Tyler cried quietly in the back row. Bethany didn't show. Later I sat on the dock as fireworks lit the sky. Our final tribute to the man who taught me how to fight with honor. Kira leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're not your father," she said, "but you're everything he wanted you to be." And as the fireworks cracked like thunder above the lake, I finally let the grief go. Dad was gone, but his legacy, it was just getting started. And here it is, the finale of today's story. Did everything turn out as you imagined, or did it end unexpectedly? I'd love to hear what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's dive into the discussion together. If this story kept you in suspense, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? This is your chance to join an incredible community where exciting new stories unfold every day. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date. Thanks for your attention, and see you on your new adventures.